Hey, Matt, I saw your post on LinkedIn about the Legal Mentor Network. Do you have time to chat? LinkedIn is 100% the catalyst at the middle of it. I don't think that we could have been nearly as successful as we are at this moment without LinkedIn. I sometimes say coaching 10-year-old baseball is very, very similar to coaching lawyers. There are many law students who think the only type of job that's out there is strapping on a suit and tie and going into court. Without ragging on law schools, I do think that one of the negatives about law school is they don't.
Hi, and welcome to the latest edition of But Is It Legal, which is the podcast from TBD Marketing. I'm going to be your host, as I always am. It's Simon Marshall here from TBD Marketing. And this week, I'm joined by Matt Schwartz. Matt, have I pronounced it right? Schwartz.
Schwartz, you got it. Yeah.
Matt Schwartz.
Just
There we
like
go. Matt,
just like in the
what do you?
Spaceballs movie.
It's quite clear that you work at DLA because you've got a DLA top. I hope so. Otherwise, you're wearing someone else's home team sweater. You work at DLA Piper. What do you do at DLA?
So I am the U.S. finance practice group leader, which means I run the U.S. finance practice across the country. Here, my personal practice is I'm a commercial finance lawyer. I represent lenders, both banks and private credit funds, on loans companies, mostly in the tech, life sciences, and healthcare space. But I do a whole variety of lending in the syndicated, sponsor, buyout, ABL market, fintech, and all the sort of related tentacles that have flown off that in the last few years.
Does it involve a lot of travel, the role? Is that something you have to do?
It does. I'm in New York every month or every other month. I'm going to Chicago next week. I was in San Francisco last week. I'm going to Toronto in a few weeks. I come over to you in the UK once a year. So it does involve quite a bit of travel. Yeah, I'm on the road quite a bit.
And worth mentioning where you are as well. You're West Coast based.
Yes, I live in San Diego. I grew up in New York, but I made the affirmative decision to come out here as a summer associate, accepted an offer out here where I thought I'd be for a few years, and I've never left.
And San Diego's got that lovely blend, hasn't it, of kind of like Hispanic and kind of, yeah, that California vibe as well. It's a good city.
We do have a really good. It's an under the radar great mix of culture. It's got a relatively diverse set of cultures here, and is really a city of neighborhoods, and every neighborhood has its own distinctive flavor. So,
I've
yeah, we've
enjoyed it.
got.
Whenever I've gone there, I've enjoyed it. It's been a lovely. It's never been a pass-through town to me. I've always kind of gone there with family. My family live just up the road from you. I think you know that, right? So
Yeah, we don't have the high highs of in New York or in LA, the
no.
cultural high highs, but it's a very consistent place for weather, outdoor activities, food. Most people here are pretty happy most of the time.
That's good to hear. Listen, the thing that drew the two of us together in the first place, I suppose, that I started spotting your work on LinkedIn as I kind of look for those voices that work at what I might call a UK firm, or you might call a global law firm. That's fine, right? But you were one of the voices that we found in there. And I think you've ranked, consistently pretty highly in our rankings over the last few quarters as well. But today I was really hoping you'd tell us a bit about the Legal Mentor Network. What does that involve? How does it work?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny you mentioned LinkedIn. The Legal Mentor Network was born out of a LinkedIn post.
Right.
My co-founder Brian Potts had what is probably one of the most viral LinkedIn posts of all time. It was basically a picture of his associate rejection letter hanging in the partner office of the firm that he was at. And the theme of the post was really, look, even if you don't succeed at first, keep trying. Big law is a tough game. Just because they say no the first time doesn't mean that your career is over or that you won't have an opportunity. And so Brian put that post up during COVID. He got an overwhelming response from young lawyers looking for a mentor. And
Yeah.
I could see as I was following along that there were literally hundreds of people asking for mentorship. So I reached out to Brian. I had never met him before. And I just sent him a note and said, hey, I love the post. I love what you're doing with the mentoring. It looks like you're kind of a regulatory litigation type lawyer. If you get requests, if you're overwhelmed and you get requests for people requesting mentoring in the transactional space, I would love to help. And he said, yeah, that would be great because I've got hundreds of people who want to mentor. So we basically agreed if someone asks for help in the transactional side, corporate, PE, finance, They would come to me, anything else would go to him. And so he and I kind of split those up. And from that, I started doing literally dozens of calls a week with young lawyers and law students looking for mentoring. And very quickly, we realized that this wasn't a task that two lawyers with busy practices could handle themselves.
No.
And we kind of assembled a team of people, including Crystal Morrow, who is an in-house lawyer at IBM, who agreed to be the executive director. We got DLA to agree to put in 50 grand a year as the primary sponsor to pay for website and software. And we created the Legal Mentor Network, which is the first formal network to pair law students and young lawyers with mentors in the legal industry. And it's just taken off from there. We've got thousands of members now. We've done thousands of mentoring calls. I've personally done hundreds of them myself with lawyers all over the world, really.
Yeah.
And I think that the key there is that even though mentoring is a word that's spoken about often in the legal industry, and while I think lawyers have the best of intentions, and there is a lot of informal mentoring that happens in the legal industry, I've certainly had many great mentors here at my firm. There was no formal process out there for someone who wanted an independent mentor to find one, other than
Yeah.
talking to a friend. And so it's really taken off. And we do programming every month. We do webinars on different topics. We do get-togethers in various cities around the country. I think we actually did one in London last year, hoping to do more there. And it is it's a 501c3 nonprofit that's dedicated to one thing and one thing only, and that's mentoring in the legal industry.
How does the matchmaking process work for a young lawyer that was coming along who said that they wanted to have a mentor? Could you tell me first about how the matchmaking bit works, and then maybe what their commitment is and what the commitment is from the other side as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we paid for a software program. You can go to our website, whether you're a mentor or a mentee. You fill out a very short questionnaire about who you are, what you have to offer on the mentor side, what you're looking for on the mentee side, and then the software will match a mentee with at least one mentor. And that we don't have a minimum commitment. It could be one phone call. Some of my there are calls I've done where it's one and done. I've had one call with someone and I never hear from them again. There are other mentees that I've had dozens of phone calls with and really established a deep relationship with over the years. Some of those mentees have come to work for me. Some of them have come to work for DLA. Many of them have gone to work, lots of other places. And so it really spans the gamut. And I think is mentee driven, right? Some mentees have a very specific question. They're at an inflection point in their career. They have a very specific question about the market that they want answered. And once you answer it, they're off and running. Others are, law students who really have no idea what they want to do with their lives and who want to follow up, monthly or quarterly. And so it's the great thing about it is there are no set parameters. It can be whatever the mentee and the mentor want it to be.
Do you think it's helping with social mobility and kind of diversity as well? Is it because people like me we didn't have a background in the legal sector when I came to it. I was a stranger to the legal sector. I wouldn't have known, how to make partner or any of those kind of things, as it were.
100%. Many of the folks that we've talked to are first gen lawyers or first gen law students. Some of them
Yeah.
are first gen college students who
Yeah.
don't really even know what's out there in the legal industry. And without ragging on law schools, I do think that one of the negatives about law school is they don't teach some of the what I'll call softer skills, whether it's networking, relationship building, skill building, thought leadership, or even about what types of jobs are available to lawyers out there. There are many law students who think the only type of job that's out there is strapping on a suit and tie and going into court, when in reality, a very small percentage of lawyers out there actually do that. So, part of it, I think, is just expanding the knowledge base so that people understand what their options are in the legal industry, what types of things there are to do, how do you go about doing relationship building, how do you think about approaching people at a conference or a cocktail hour? How do you think about personal branding? How do you think about using LinkedIn? These types of skills are ones that just aren't taught in law school, and they're not focused on at the beginning at law firms either. So I
Yeah.
think we're sort of filling a gap to really help folks. Back to your question, the folks who get the most value out of this are ones who have the least connections in the industry and the least experience. So, while we certainly don't discriminate, someone who's whose parent and grandparent, who comes from a long line of lawyers, is welcome to sign up for a mentor. But I think where it's had the most impact is with not just students who are first gen, but also in the U.S. at least a lot of what we call LLMs, who are foreign lawyers who come here to get U.S. qualified, who just don't know anything about the legal market in the U.S. and want to hear more about it.
And do people tend to come to you with like a specific thing in mind? Is it as you said, a kind of point in life, an inflection point, or a specific problem they're dealing with? Is that what tends to happen, or is it more generically a sense of maybe a malaise or a misunderstanding or a directionless? I don't mean to put words into your mouth, but the idea
Yeah,
of
no, I would say with law students, it tends to be more general, right?
yeah.
what what's out there, how does the interview process work, how do I get a job, how do I think about interviewing, how do I think about relationship management. With younger lawyers, I'd say first to maybe fifth year lawyers, it tends to be a more specific question. They're at an inflection point in their career, they've practiced for a year or two, and they're either unhappy with their practice or they like what they're doing but they want to take it to the next level. I mean, lots of people, even though I've never been trained on how to do LinkedIn, ask me about how do I get started on LinkedIn, how do I think about building relationships? How do I build relationships internally within my firm? What do I do to build relationships externally? I'm going to a conference. What should I do when I'm at the conference? Um, so it's really all over the place, to be honest. The questions that I get are, from soup to nuts, and I think that's what makes it most fascinating. Is I never know what a mentee is going to ask me when I get on one of these calls.
You think it could have come about without LinkedIn? Is it a network that could have existed without it or prior to it? I mean, I guess it's hard to know, really, isn't it?
I think it's possible, but I really think LinkedIn is the accelerant that helped us start the whole thing. And
Yeah.
I do think that the vast majority of our outreach and marketing happens through LinkedIn. That's where I've gotten most of my mentees from. Most of them are either the ones that I've matched with through the software, or the ones, I would say 90% of the outreach is through a LinkedIn private message. Hey, Matt, I saw your post on LinkedIn about the Legal Mentor Network. Do you have time to chat? LinkedIn is 100% the catalyst at the middle of it. I don't think that we could have been nearly as successful or widespread as we are at this moment without LinkedIn. I really don't.
Do they know that? Have you told them? I mean, it'd be worth flagging to them, just tell Ryan Roslansky, hey, here's a lovely little case study. I tagged him in something the other day, Matt, and he liked the comment.
I don't know that we have directly, but I
You
think
got
we
to
should.
tell him. You got to
I
tell
think
him.
we should.
When we
Who is
celebrate
Ron?
this podcast, I'm going to tag him and say, Ryan, you need to show everyone.
This is the opportunity. I think this is a great opportunity to do that. I mean, we certainly post about it a lot, but I don't know that we've ever done a formal, hey, thank you for offering up this platform. It's been really valuable, both as a man and to be clear, I think that my experience as a mentor has been just as valuable as the experience has been to the mentees. It's given me an entirely different outlook on my career as a lawyer. It's one of the most enjoyable parts of my career. I think that mentoring as a lawyer, especially as a more senior lawyer, if you're not doing it, you're missing out. You're missing out. It's not the kind of thing where you give back and you don't get. It's one of these things where I believe that I get as much from doing the mentoring as I do from giving it.
That is brilliant. And I was going to ask about that as well. But let's look at the coaching aspect of your life as well, because I think I'm right in thinking, aren't I, that you do some little league and some other kind of sports coaching as well?
Yep, I've coached my son's baseball team for the last 4 or 5 years. I maybe this summer may have been the swan song, just because he's getting to the point where having your dad coach you isn't effective anymore. But I have coached baseball since my son was 5, so 6 seasons. Um, yeah, and it's amazing coaching. I sometimes say coaching 10-year-old baseball is very, very similar to coaching lawyers. Highly skilled kids who need a bit of uplift. You learn a lot of lessons from how to be patient, how to be kind, how to be caring, how to be empathetic, and these are lessons that extend to your whole life, not just to being a lawyer. And now that I'm in a leadership role here, I took over running my small team in 2016. That was a bit of a shock to the system. I would say that running a team of 150 lawyers is a much bigger enterprise than running a small team, because I'm leading other partners partners who are in some ways more successful in their practices than I am, who do things that I don't really know and don't really understand their practices in depth. I could never do the things that they do. And I think that being a leader of other lawyers is a very challenging enterprise. I do think that in general, lawyers, this is just a generalization, lawyers are not great at leadership in general.
Right.
Lawyers are not great at marketing in general. We need to be led to the well. I certainly, myself included, I sort of took it upon myself to read books about leadership, to do training about it, to learn how to be a better coach, to learn how to be a better leader. And I do think that doing the mentoring has really made me a better leader, both internally and externally, in terms of understanding the market, being more empathetic. And so I think that leadership outside of the law, whether it's coaching sports, whether it's parenting, whether it's doing volunteer work that's non-legal related, really helps you round out your skill set as a lawyer and as a leader.
And do we ever use the unifying force that is baseball to kind of bring the DLA finance practice together and have an annual trip or a game together? Do we do anything like that, or is that not happening?
Oh, we don't have a baseball team here in our office. We have in the past. There's a massive trophy sitting down the hall from when we did have our softball team. But you can see we've got the poker trophy sitting up there.
I like it.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we use those lessons to bring folks together. And yeah, I do think that it is there are lots of great analogies, especially for baseball, because it's such a contemplative sport. I know that probably many of your folks in the UK are thinking, oh, baseball, brutish American sport with a bat and a ball, but it's such a contemplative thinking sport. There's so much strategy that's involved,
I
and
agree.
that strategy is constant. It's constantly
It's chess, but
shifting
someone's
throughout the
throwing
game.
a ball at you at 100 miles an hour, right?
Correct. It's chess with a ball 100 miles an hour. And so I think there are so many analogs to law firms and to leadership and to your experience in life. So you learn a lot of lessons that help you be patient, empathetic, strategic, offensive, defensive. There's just so many there are so many analogs that I think it's not the only way, but it is a great way to increase your leadership skills and abilities by
I think
coaching.
one of the things I spotted about it was because I started watching a bit more of it this season, having not watched it for a few years, was just how much can be achieved with a small team, right? So on the field, there's not that many players. You cover a lot of ground. And it's kind of like this metaphor for a legal team, a high-performing legal team has only got 6, 7, 8 members in it as well. And the baseball squad is bigger, obviously, but the team on the field is a bit like that. You achieve a lot between you. I think cover a lot of ground. I think it's amazing.
Absolutely. And then the other thing too, you'll notice is that there are specialists, right? There are
Yeah.
pitchers who only come in certain situations. It's a
Yeah.
lefty matchup, right? It's similar to the law where you go, hey, we need to bring in a regulatory specialist. Here's where we need to bring our tax lawyer in, right? You need to know the situation and understand who the right people to bring in at the right times are. So there are many analogs to
I
legal
love it.
practice in the
To
game of baseball.
bringing those two back together again, the sports and maybe the mental network. Two final questions for you. So one is, can you spot kind of future leaders in each of those two programs? And as part of the same question, what marks them out? What is it that you spot in people that you think these guys are going to go on to be leaders?
Yeah, absolutely. I think empathy is a key trait for leadership. It's really hard to lead without being empathetic.
Yeah.
I think gratitude is a key trait for leadership. You can tell when someone is grateful and expresses it in a way that's meaningful and resonates with other people. I also just think that some people just aren't born to network or build relationships. As hard as they try, it's counterintuitive to their natural inclination, right? There are many lawyers who prefer to just sit in their office, close the door, and type away at their computer and do their work. And those people are not naturally inclined to be leaders. Whereas the ones who are naturally inclined to be out there in the market, to make connections with people on a an individual level, to be empathetic to others, to be grateful for the opportunity to be out in the market. I do think those are the people who are more naturally inclined to lead. And you see it in sports. People who were captains of their team,
Yeah.
people who come to practice early, who stay late, who listen to their coaches, who do their homework, their their studying of the game, who learn from their mistakes, regardless of their natural physical ability. Look, I may not be the smartest finance lawyer out there. There's lots of great finance lawyers out there in the world. There are literally 100 lawyers who could do the substantive work that I do on a day-to-day basis. I don't think there are nearly as many of them who could do the leadership stuff. A, because they're not interested, and B, because it's not their natural inclination to do so.
It's good to know that that's the trait that marks you out. And I think to be self-aware about it as well is a good thing. So final question then, are we starting to see the first group of mentees who are now turning into mentors coming through the program as well?
100%. So yesterday, 2 days ago on Monday, I had a catch up. I have one of my original mentees. She's a foreign lawyer. She was qualified in South Africa. She came here as an LLM. She was one of my very first mentees. Spent 2 years working at another big law firm in the United States. We recently recruited her over here to work at DLA Piper, not in my group. She's a corporate lawyer. We caught up the other day, and she said to me, she's now in her 4th year of practice, really her 5th or 6th year if you include the time she spent. And she said, I'm getting to the point where I'm really pushing work down to juniors and really having to mentor them. And she's gone from the place of being just a mentee to being a she's still my mentee, but she's a mentor to others. Yeah. So I really am seeing this, as you say, crop of lawyers who I have mentored over the years. And I see it with others on my team who I've mentored, other mentors, not to call her out, but there's this woman, Lindsay Avalos, who's a lawyer on LinkedIn. You may have seen her post. She just graduated law school. She is absolutely brilliant and wise beyond her years. She has lived a very interesting life, was a single mom in her teens, basically lived out of her car, bootstrapped her way through college and law school. And she's mentoring other young law students, even before she's stepped her first day into a job as a lawyer. So it happens at different points for people, but I'm 100% seeing it. And, I used to have this thing hanging on my door. It's, now my door here is a glass door, so I don't have stuff posted on there, but it was a picture that said, you're not a leader until you've created a leader who's created another leader. And I really find that to be true. And I think it works for mentors and mentees. You're not really a mentor until you've mentored someone who mentors someone else. And I tell that to everyone, spread it along. If you learn something, spread it to someone else. And I think that is one of the, bringing it back to the Legal Mentor Network, that's one of the key traits that we're seeing is folks that we have mentored are now mentoring others. And that's an amazing thing to see. There's no better feeling than that.
I agree. Listen, thank you. I know you're an incredibly busy man. I really appreciate your time as well. And Matt, if for the broader audience, the people who are listening into the podcast today as well, if you've not followed Matt already, then I don't know what you've been doing, but I really would give him a follow. He speaks from the heart, passionately about what it takes to be a great lawyer, but using this amazing support network. The legacy he's created through the Legal Mentor Network with his colleagues on that network has supposed to be incredible. I know that they've got a big thing coming up in the autumn as well, that you should check out if you're stateside, see whether or not you can be able to attend. That's in New York, Matt, is it?
Yes, the gala is November 7th in New York. If you're a law student, we will get you there for free. If you're a young lawyer who wants to attend, please reach out. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate using your platform to project the message of mentoring in the legal industry. If you are out there listening and you want to mentor, please feel free to reach out directly. Send me a LinkedIn DM, sign up for the Legal Mentor Network. We will get you all set up. And especially if you are a lawyer who wants to become a mentor, please reach out. We always need more mentors.
Wonderful. And then if you get a chance, you like the podcast today, I'm bound to. If you listen to it, then please do subscribe as well. And let us know what you think in the comments. And Matt, thank you so much for your time. That's been amazing.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Have a great day.